Hi everyone. In today's interview, I speak with Noah Frank, the president of Stephano Group. We spoke about the strong work ethic that comes out of an entrepreneurial family, how the Canadian business ecosystem has evolved over the last few decades, and what he sees as the DNA and skills that young entrepreneurs need to succeed in the future economy. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Noah Frank, President, Stephano Group.
Well, Noah, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I really appreciate it. Could you just start by introducing yourself and Stephano Group, what the company does, and also what its backstory is, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim, thanks for having me today. So Stephano Group is a family business. We're in cereal manufacturing for the most part. We've branched off a little bit into some other adjacent categories in overall CPG food manufacturing. The company was founded in the late 70s, early 80s by my parents. And I grew up in the business. It was run pretty much as a mom and pop business for, the first whole part of the history. And then at a certain point, my brother and I really came into the business fully. And we've been about 15 to 20 years in that kind of capacity. And currently we're, I guess, sort of transitioning from my parents' stewardship, ownership, operation of the company to fully it just being my brother and I. And that transition's been the last 5 years or so.
Well, that's super interesting, Noah. And you mentioned that the company was founded by your parents in the late 70s, early 80s. So obviously there's a lot of history there. Not only in terms of time, but also it seems like there were two chapters, your parents first and now your brother and you. How do you think the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Canada has changed through those periods, and especially during your time as the leader of the company? And do you think the experience from entrepreneurs back then and now is comparable? How do you see that evolution taking place?
It's a good question for sure. And, I think certainly in my family, we all really consider ourselves entrepreneurs. So of a certain guild anyways. So it's definitely something that we've lived every day. When the company was founded, I was just a young child. So I don't really have a direct, perspective of the 70s, let's say, and the environment at that time. But I do know that, my parents arrived as new immigrants in Canada, and that they really came here with nothing, basically clothes on their back kind of thing. And they were able to really quite quickly get into business ownership, into, independent entrepreneurship. And, I always found that story to be quite amazing, what they did. One of the big challenges that I see is I try to imagine someone coming or starting here in Canada with, very, very little in terms of cash or, capital that is available to them to start a business. And I just see that the red tape and the bureaucracy of how things are now from a regulatory perspective, really from a barrier to entry perspective, that's definitely a major challenge. And I think it probably leads many people away from maybe the idea of pushing through on their own business. Especially trying to imagine getting into a manufacturing business or something that doesn't lend itself to sort of a single operator owner kind of perspective.
Now, I want to shift gears a little bit. You recently secured an investment from the CBGF, the Canadian Business Growth Fund. So I wanted to ask, what does that mean for the company? And what do you think it's going to allow you to do? What are your plans with that injection?
There's a few different avenues that we're looking at. Certainly something that was never a possibility before was the opportunity to look at maybe other businesses and look at, acquisition partnerships different things that we may not have been exploring before, that is allowed here. But another good point about the partnership with CBGF is just being able to rely on and lean on them for a bit of guidance overall in terms of just corporate governance, being able to transition our small business, really small, medium business, into the medium business range. To have that support and that input is really important for my brother and I running the business, having really come up through the business itself and learned through just the experience of running our own business and not really bringing in too much outside experience into that picture. So, moving into kind of our new opportunity with CBGF and the funding that's come in is that we can holistically look at the business a little bit differently, and we can access opportunities that we never had access to before. That really allows us to, kind of mature the business at this point, bring in more corporate governance, run the business in a way that sets us up for really the growth that we imagine and the success that we want to have in the future.
I'd like to ask you, what are the opportunities you see for Canada in general, but also for young Canadians, young entrepreneurs who might be looking at the food and consumer packaged goods space? What opportunities do you see in that, and how do you see that space evolving over the next couple of years?
Anybody young approaching this space and maybe coming into generating a new business or getting something off the ground would really have to look at the technology aspect, would have to look at things that were less immediately apparent to us when we were getting our business growing. I think the preliminary work to getting a business going, the business plan, a lot of the things that will be looked at when trying to raise capital, when trying to get something going in the early stages. Those have to be much more developed now for a young entrepreneur, and they would need the skill set and those tools. Whereas with us, we relied on a lot of hard work, gut instinct, that kind of thing, and just sort of forging forward. Whereas I think, most entrepreneurs getting going today will want to be a lot more aware of sort of the technology component in food manufacturing, more developed on those type of attributes to getting a business off the ground.
Before we wrap things up, I want to ask you about the entrepreneur's DNA. I want to know what it means to you, and maybe what qualities, both inherent or taught or learned, you think best represent successful entrepreneurs, and maybe even entrepreneurial families, since you come from one.
Yeah, for sure. And this is something I've spent, quite a bit of time thinking about and analyzing, and maybe occasionally offering my advice to people who ask for it. It's a pretty simple equation with me, Tim, and that is it's work ethic. I was raised in an environment where my parents were working all the time. There was no real, separation between work and home. It was really just one rolling picture, and it was ingrained in me and my brother as well. Just what it takes to run one of these businesses. What's involved in really trying to be successful in business and entrepreneurship. And that's the number one key for me is just, honestly, it's hard work. It's work ethic. It's being focused, grinding it out even on the days where you don't want to, and just putting that priority first. You have to be willing to do that. If you're not willing to do that, then you may not be in the right game in terms of being in your own business and driving that business forward.
I want to wrap it up by inviting you to drop an elevator pitch on someone, anyone that you think has the power to either strengthen or improve Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem or entrepreneurship in Canada in general. Who would you pitch and what would you ask them to do now?
Well, I don't know the exact person in charge, but I would directionally put it towards the education system. I think that, really, if we're going to give people the skill sets for entrepreneurship, those things need to be part of the curriculum and taught at a young age to develop the mindset towards it. When I was in elementary or high school, it didn't exist, to a large degree. Maybe cursory mention, but definitely nothing formal, nothing sort of groundbreaking on that front. I think that's where we'll cultivate the next generation. And they have to understand, A, what it is about, the experience of other entrepreneurs, and the new pathways to maybe getting an opportunity.